We got, we're recording. So welcome everybody to I think we're calling it the Tech and Then Some podcast. This is the first episode. I'm joined by Asher Armstrong, which is, I guess, a regular co-host. And then we got JB, who is a
Hey everyone.
former Apple employee. So that's kind of what we wanted to talk about today is what it's like working at Apple. Like the 20-degree MacBook thing. You know what I'm talking about? In
Mm-hmm.
Apple stores?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Would you be
Yeah.
able to talk a little bit about that? Explain it, and then if there's any other things like that that they
Mm-hmm.
train you to do in Apple stores.
Yeah, sure. Well, first, thank you so much for having me. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it. To answer your question about Apple stores, visual merchandising is something that they take really seriously, and nothing at Apple happens that isn't intentional. And the whole thing about having the product set at a specific angle, it's designed to make you touch the product, because you can't interact with it if it's at that particular angle. So not only does it look nice and uniform, not only does it look really precise and clean when you walk into the store, but Apple wants you to touch it. And it's like if you go into some of the big box retail stores, you'll notice that a lot of the products, they have like almost like a cage on them, and you can't really feel it,
Yeah.
you can't interact with it properly, which isn't, it's not the experience that Apple wants to have. There's risks to it with when it comes to shrink and loss, but yeah, the main point is that they just really want for customers to feel like they can actually use the product and imagine what it would be like to own it. So yeah, but Apple has a lot of strange rules and kind of weird things that they do in that way, but it's all very intentional. It's all about trying to create the best possible customer experience, even kind of like the small minutia. Yeah.
But is there any other things that like aren't as well known? Kind of like the 20-degree thing, just like
Hmm.
little.
There's tons of things that like so this isn't quite as relevant now because they use MagSafe, but
Mhm.
uh, kind of in for previous models of iPhone, the products they have an alarm cable attached to the back of them, and there
Mhm.
is a long wire because whilst there isn't that cage that I was mentioning a moment ago, there's kind of a ribbon cable with an alarm, and what you had to do is you had to kind of wind the cable around, sort of like two fingers, wind the cable around so that it formed a perfect loop, and then tuck it right underneath the cable
Uh-huh.
so that it kind of like stayed parallel. That way you didn't kind of have cables just all over the place. But in launch season, when everyone's in the store, when it's crowded, it was pretty much impossible to keep it looking like that. But they're retractable cables now on MagSafe, I believe. So yeah,
Okay.
they've solved for that. But yeah, there's all kinds of like weird random rules. Like Apple, like they take details seriously. Like they even have their own quarries. So like the stone that you see on the floor in all the stores, it's the exact same quarry all over the world, and they mine from specific faces of the quarry because they want for the floor to look uniform no matter where you go. I think they now use like a terrazzo floor in more modern stores, but for like the old legacy mall stores,
Uh-huh.
and some of the kind of like the bigger flagship stores, yeah, it's that's kind of the level of detail that they go to.
Wow,
That is weird.
that's crazy.
That now that you talk about it, there's a lot of just like little weird minute things that there's no reason for.
Hmm.
Because like
Well,
Yeah.
what does
there is
anybody care
reason,
if the
right?
granite looks a little bit different or not granite, whatever it is. If it looks a little bit different than thing, no. Is it a cool detail that like yeah, it's something Apple would definitely care about.
I
So
think I
you
think it's sort of the same concept of the McDonald's, like how he basically said, "I want anyone to be able to make the McDonald's hamburger." Right, and they wanted you could go anywhere in the country and have McDonald's, and you would know you're getting
Hmm.
the McDonald's hamburger. I guess Apple probably took the same
yeah.
approach to that,
I
so
think a lot of
it's
that
really interesting.
also comes from Steve Jobs a little bit. Just the
Yeah.
weird little things he would do and the ideology of having everything perfect and uniform, even on the inside, even the floor of the stores. So
Yeah.
it's good to see that at least they're kind of hanging on to roots a little bit. So you started at Apple stores, right?
I did, yeah. So, and kind of by accident. So, it wasn't my intention to work at Apple. So, I was at university at the time, and I had a job working in a science museum, funnily enough. And the science museum like operated one of the biggest IMAX theaters in the UK as well. So that was kind of cool. But there was a career fair going on at the university, just for students who were freshers and looking for new jobs, and Apple had a presence there, and they just saw me helping somebody to set up a projector and kind of trying to find the right DVA
Uh-huh.
dongle back when DVA was a thing on MacBooks. And I got approached and they said, hey, have you thought about applying to Apple? And I thought, well, I'm a fan, so I guess it would kind of make sense. And I spent a lot of my free time trying to convince, friends and family to buy Apple stuff, so I might as well get paid to do it. So it was like the perfect part-time job for while I was at university. Yeah, so I started off as a specialist in around Christmas 2010.
That's okay. That's awesome. And then from there, you just how does one go from working at an Apple store to moving to Apple Park in Cupertino, where you eventually worked? Because I feel like the Apple
Mm.
store is like something that's attainable by someone who really wants to work for Apple. But then how do you make
Hmm.
the transition?
Yeah, that is a good question. So I think there's kind of two routes you can go. One of the things that Apple likes to do is they like to promote internally, and they offer a ton of career experiences. Like I had so many different career experiences over the 10 years I was at Apple that
Hmm.
I can't even remember all of them. Like that's the truth. Like I couldn't even remember all of the different things that I've done, and I've traveled like I had the opportunities to travel to all kinds of different places. Both within my country, but to other countries too. So Apple tends to advertise things on an internal job board, and you can apply for those. And if you're successful, that's kind of how you end up in Cupertino. But I guess that to get there, I had to do a lot of other things over several years, kind of build up my skills, build up my interview technique, and it was only kind of towards the end of my last sort of year or two at Apple that I felt ready to go and do something like that. And then, yeah, put my name forward and applied, passed through the interviews, and yeah, before I knew it, I was over in Cupertino.
So it was 2 years you said that you were at the stores before going to Cupertino?
No, so I was at the stores for the majority of my time at Apple. It was kind of towards the last part, like the last year or two, when I was
Gotcha.
able to kind of go and work out in Cupertino. But as I was saying, kind of like over the 10 years, like there were so many different opportunities that I had, and I think what I just tried to do is I just tried to take like the opportunity for the like any opportunity that came up, I would just seize it and go for it. And
Of
sometimes it would
course.
work out, sometimes it wouldn't. But the other way that you would end up in Cupertino is if you had a very specific degree, you had years and years of experience, and there was a very specific need. But Apple doesn't tend to do a lot of sponsors for people that are not from kind of the US. So for me as an employee in retail, I was doing a science major, but it was a really cool way for me to just get to experience what it was like to work in the corporate side of things.
Right. And how would you
So
say the dynamic was, like the atmosphere going from retail to corporate? Well, did they still have the same atmosphere, or is there a difference? Like, what would you say in that regard?
Um, they are worlds apart. Like there are some similarities. Like there are definitely similarities. You use some of the same internal tools, some of the same internal systems. Like it's the same intranet, right? But I think that the way that the work is structured is totally different. Like you'll have a defined schedule in a retail store, so you'll be working on specific tasks. If you work in corporate, yeah, you'll have like the time you're supposed to be at work, the time that you can leave for the day, but how you spend that time is largely down to you. You aren't micromanaged in that way. Like as long as the work is done, Apple doesn't really care how it gets done, which I think is the right call. Like it's definitely the right move. I think that the perks and benefits are pretty competitive both in retail and in corporate, but in corporate, I would say they're just that little bit better.
okay, so based on the fact that they promote internally, it's safe to say most of the people at Apple Park what started at Apple stores.
Um, I wouldn't say that necessarily. I mean I couldn't tell you. I could be wrong on this. I would
Uh-huh.
imagine that the majority are probably external hires or have been promoted through various roles at Apple. But um, they like to make they do like to do internal promotion, so wherever that is possible, and they like to put out as many opportunities for externals for internals as they can. And like in the retail stores, I have a friend who recently got accepted onto a junior developer program. So she's now kind of being trained up to be like a junior software engineer at Apple. And previously to that, I think she was working as like a genius in one of the stores, so just doing like device repairs. And now she's in London, and yeah, she's training up to be a junior engineer. So
Junior engineer. So so you went to Apple Park on the
mm,
tail end of working at Apple, or you started working there.
yeah.
Um, what was you said you did testing for software, right?
I did. So I did what's called user acceptance testing. So
Hmm.
user acceptance testing is generally the last stage of development before a product will go into a beta. It's not too different from beta testing in some ways, but more controlled. Beta testing is kind of like user acceptance testing, but on a really kind of grand scale and with less directives around it. But yeah,
Well, and
so user
you mean
acceptance
internal
testing,
beta testing, right?
internal, yeah, right.
Yeah, okay.
Um, so yeah, I guess internal beta testing might be a way to think of it. But it's pre-beta, so it's almost like alpha
It's alpha,
level
yeah, alpha
software.
testing.
Yeah,
So
Okay.
yeah.
with your testing, did you weren't doing any code, right? You're basically just being the user trying to test everything, or did you focus like I'm specifically testing these functions of it, and someone else would be like someone else tests the cellular functions, I test the app functions. Like what depth can you go in?
Yeah, so I didn't have to do any coding, thankfully, because I don't have a lot of coding skill, which is just as well. But what user acceptance testing generally covers is it'll cover specific workflows. So you might simply have to run test cases where you need to go from point A to point B in a software, and there'll be steps and directions and critical paths that you will need to follow in order to kind of get from that start point to that end point. Sometimes you'll do what's called regression testing. So regression, for people that don't know, is when a case that you've already tested or a version of software that you've already tested, if the developer decides to go in and make further changes, or maybe they make tweaks, then the things that you tested previously and verified as working may now suddenly not work.
Yeah.
They may now be broken, so you have to rerun some of those cases again. So there's lots of kinds of user acceptance testing, but the two that I tended to do most was kind of workflows of specific cases and regression. So kind of just making sure stuff still worked as it should. If there were bugs, reporting those back, documenting the bugs, capturing it, and then that my kind of captures would go back to the developers, and they would try to reproduce it, and if they could, they'd go in and fix it.
So you said workflows. What does a workflow look like? Is that like take a picture, email it here, forward that email to this, and text it to someone else, or?
That's actually a really good description. That's pretty much what
Huh?
it would be. So on a given day, we might have specific projects that we needed to work on with what are called cases. So a case could be something like take a picture, email it, or take a picture, send it via AirDrop, open it on a Mac, open it on an iPad, running the
Uh-huh.
same version of software. Does it work correctly? Great. Now send it back to the original source device. Make sure it still opens and works as expected. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, document why it doesn't work. Sometimes though, we'd go deeper than that. So, for example, like on an iPhone, there are several ways you can silence a phone. So the test case could be activate the silent ringer switch, which RIP, but activate the silent ringer
Hmm.
switch, and that might work perfectly. But if you go to silence the device using Siri, or I mean, that never works. But if you go to silence, say through the control center, then maybe you don't get the same result. Maybe the silent function doesn't work. So that would be an example of where you're almost trying to find ways to break the software if you can.
Uh-huh. So it
That's
sounds like you're
awesome.
like building points of as many points of error as possible to make sure that that doesn't happen for the actual user. Asher, go ahead.
Yeah, like that's definitely the intention for sure.
So, quick question. I know you said like with the workflows, you're using different devices. Are these with simulators, or you literally have like 10 devices on your desk that you're
It's a good
airdropping from in
question.
between and stuff?
So it varied. So generally, there's staging software that Apple uses. So staging software will kind of replicate real world data, and sometimes you'll be running test cases using staging data, and you might be using just one specific device or two or three specific devices with particular builds. Sometimes it might be multiple of the same devices, and that might be using what is intended to be production software. It really just depended on the test case and the project.
Yeah. Dude, so what is about right now, right?
Mm.
WWDC's coming up. You think that testing is happening right now? Or what's the
Um,
distance?
it's a good question. I mean, it's possible. So generally, there's kind of three layers to the development process. I mean, this is a very broad sweeping statement, but the initial development takes place, then it goes to QA testing, and then it goes to UAT. QA is different to UAT. QA is quality assurance, and that is much more challenging because you're working with pretty unstable software in many cases, very early build. Whereas user acceptance testing, the name's the clue's kind of in the name. It's about you as the user. Do you accept the software? Does it work as intended? Does it function
Uh-huh.
in a way that would make sense for you as the person that will eventually be using that product?
So you got to test
But
iOS 15, right?
um, I don't recall the specific software that I was working on at the time in terms of the version number, but because it wasn't necessarily the operating systems, it was more individual applications
Huh.
that my test cases were on. So I don't know that they were necessarily attributed to specific operating systems, but yeah, a few different applications for Mac, for iPad, for iPhone.
Anything with focus modes? Because I remember I think that was kind of the new thing.
I I don't recall having to test focus modes. No, I think a lot of the stuff, because it wasn't necessarily operating level system features, it was more about kind of stuff that lived within that application. It's hard to give kind of specific examples of operating system level stuff. That
Yeah.
said, like we would definitely have to do things like to your example earlier, like try sending files to a build of software on Mac, send it over to iOS, send it over to iPad OS. So that kind of we would touch on it 100%, but it was more kind of test cases within specific apps.
Yeah. So that's all done at Apple Park. I'm assuming all the testing is done on campus, right?
So I was based mostly on a facility in Mountain View. So Google has a
Uh-huh.
big presence there too. But I mean, Apple and like Google, they own pretty much all the property in Cupertino. Like
Uh-huh.
Apple was paying for my apartment, and I could walk like I was like a 10
It's a
15
lot
minute walk
like
from Apple
Lumen.
Park. If I yeah. Yeah, it really felt a little bit like that actually. I think you can definitely see where Ben Stiller
The
got the cues from.
inspiration. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, so I was working mostly in Mountain View, but I did my training on the old Infinite Loop campus, which is still really cool. Like, there's a lot of Apple history there, so I really enjoyed it. But at Apple Park, like most of the time, like if I was at Apple Park, it would be for like maybe a meeting or just to kind of because they do a lot of lectures at the Steve Jobs Theatre for employees. So I'd always try and take advantage of that opportunity and go and see a lecture if that was on.
Okay. That's actually funny, the severance inspiration though. There's a tweet here because I asked some people before we started this, any questions you want to ask an Apple employee? A lot of them are questions which I don't think you would know the answer to or have anything to do with what you did or unrealistic like the is there a severed floor at Apple with secret Apple products? I think Sh- John Snow Snanauer would appreciate if you could comment on that.
See, look,
I
even if he,
mean,
even if there was, he couldn't tell you because he's
Oh,
out of
he
the
wouldn't
work right
know?
now.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
That's not
like
how it
you
works.
Yeah, you're talking to Outy JB here, not Innie, so I wouldn't know.
Besties with Tim
What
in
I
there.
I mean, maybe. I mean, what I can say is that there are specific floors which I couldn't access, which a lot of employees won't be able to access. Like everything is done through kind of like through badge access, and like they have a no tailgating policy, as you can imagine. There's a lot of black cloths, a lot of drapes everywhere. So yeah, it's
Uh-huh.
possible. Who knows?
White halls.
A lot of white halls. Yeah.
So it's like actually during the event where they actually they take the camera and they go underground. You're like actually going multiple floors underground into those
Yeah, are
actual
those
areas.
real?
There are floors underground. In fact, like there's a massive parking lot right underneath Apple Park. If you
Uh-huh.
ever go to the visitor center, the parking lot for the visitor center is underground as well. So yeah, there are kind of some subterranean floors. I think it's exaggerated in the keynotes, but yeah, there are
Mhm.
there are multiple levels.
That's the keynotes. I had a lot of, dude. That's one of my favorite things about Apple, especially like
Hmm.
when you were there in 2020. Those were some of the greatest event like keynotes I've ever seen from a company. So what is that like? Do they just not let, I know you didn't work at the campus itself a lot, but like, do you know, did they just
Hmm.
like not let anybody go there for 2 weeks while they were filming or?
So, funnily enough, I actually left at the very beginning of 2020. So I left in February, just before the
Uh-huh.
pandemic hit. So I wasn't there around the time of keynote filming. That being said, I was invited to WWDC in 2022, so I was on campus for that, and that was the first time that they did an in-person event after the pandemic, where they had all the developers there, they had like the media and the press and so on. I was not an employee at that point, and as it happens, I was traveling with a really close friend who was still an employee at that time. So they were able to go on campus as an employee. I was able to go on campus as a guest. But as an employee, they were basically like corralled and said like, no, you can't go anywhere near the developers today unless you're part of organizing the event. So they were kind of like siloed off, and yeah,
Uh,
security was everywhere. I think it was preferred that employees didn't go into the office that day, if it was possible. They definitely like to kind of clear the decks, and they will set up like no filming zones. And it's like with the executives, you're not supposed to approach them. They kind of call them campus superstars. You'll see them from time to time, but like
mhm.
you're encouraged not to approach them unless they approach you.
Yeah, I wanted to go to Dub Dub so bad. I'm I'm working on an app. I have an app, so technically I have a developer account, so I signed up for the lottery and everything. That's random, right? The developer
It
lottery.
is. Yeah, it is. So normally, if you've not ever attended previously, you have a higher chance than somebody that has previously been successful, because they can measure that through your developer account. So if you kind of, I
Uh-huh.
guess, if you created a new developer account, potentially you could circumnavigate the rules. But then again, maybe they track your name. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's a lottery system every year that they
I
do. Kind of
I also didn't get to go. I tried as well. I have my developer account. I registered, so neither of us will be going this year, but maybe we'll both go next year, Asher.
Yeah. That's
maybe.
helpful though, that like you can't that they measure that. So it's not actually random, is it?
I think it's randomized to an extent, but I think that they do have certain selection criteria. The one being that they
Uh-huh.
prioritize people that haven't yet had the opportunity, which I think is fair. Like, I think it
Yeah, no,
wouldn't
that's a good
necessarily be
thing.
fair if someone's had the chance before, because there are limited spaces. I mean, the year that I went, like, I went via the developer lottery, and I just got lucky, I guess.
Yeah. Do they, what about
It's
like,
it's weighted randomization. That's how you can think of it.
is it
Yeah.
weighted to the fact where if you've done it a bunch of other times and lost, then you're more likely to do it than someone who's applying for the first time?
I bet he doesn't know.
I'm not. I'm
Okay,
not
dude.
sure. I don't recall, but I mean, I would like to think so. I feel like you've said that, and I feel like I've read something about that somewhere, but I'm not sure.
I mean, I would hope, dude. This is my second year. That's all I want to do. Just, I'm actually, I'm gonna try to go this year still as like someone's cameraman. Um, I know some YouTubers, and I'd love to. If anyone else is going and you want a cameraman, I know how to use a camera, so I'll go.
Yeah,
Dude.
go for it. I mean, there were a lot of YouTubers there. Like the year that I went, I saw Marquez and I saw I Justine. I think like Carl Conrad. Like there was a few people around. I,
Mhm.
I think I think Sam Cole went as well from
Oh, that was
Apple
that
Track.
year?
But he
He got in as a
yeah, but
developer.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I saw him. Like he's really tall as well. Like I didn't realize how tall he was,
Yeah.
and in person he was like a giant.
Yeah. I know I know some people, unfortunately, it's just I think Sam is one of them that it's just they don't want them there anymore. Um, I heard using dummy units specifically, like they just don't like that. Is
I
that
think Apple, yeah, I mean Apple is a PR machine as you know, and
dude?
I think that they want to invite people that shared not just a positive light on their products, but I think like that are kind of brand safe. So like yeah, showing like dummy units, and I think like excessive speculation that they see as potentially brand damaging might not be something that they want to do. Like I think we've seen examples of that. Like I think John Rettinger, he's like one of the originals in tech review. Like he I think is pretty much blacklisted from Apple. Like to his, well, that's what he shared anyway on his YouTube channel. So I think yeah, that's definitely true to some extent. So I think if you want to ever get those press invites and have the opportunity to get review units, the certain subjects maybe to stay away from.
Yeah,
Carter is never getting in.
harder PCs? Oh, you mean or my friend?
No Carter PCs. He's
Yeah,
never
why?
getting
What do
in.
harder PCs
And,
do?
I mean, he's made multiple videos on it, but he's like, I don't think Apple, because last year he went
Uh-huh.
as like and sat outside, like literally
Oh,
set up a
oh, with
chair
the white
outside
harder PCs?
with Nathan. Yeah,
Oh,
or no, not Nathan, the other guy. But
uh-huh.
yeah, most of the time I think now obviously I'm not Apple, right?
I
But
remember they watched it on the iPad.
based on the experiences of the people who have talked about like not having been invited and having multi-million followers, right? They're like, well, we have bought and reviewed fake Apple products, so like buying fake AirPods and reviewing them or talking about them or whatever,
Uh-huh.
and then also talking shade about them, about like just in general, just talking bad about them sometimes, and just like now obviously it's like there has to be
Yeah,
some
there's that gray
balance
area.
of
'Cause I don't want to go full I just see and just be like,
right,
the box smells good and
right.
like whatever she does, but I also don't want to I want to be brand safe so bad, but I work with people like John Prosser and make the renders of the like I feel like that's equivalent to reviewing a dummy unit 'cause that's pretty much most people's first look at Apple products before they come out. What's the what do you know what Apple's view is on like concepts?
I'm not sure what Apple's views are on concepts, but kind of rewinding a second to I Justine. I mean, I Justine, like she's somebody that I'm a big fan of. Like she's been in the industry a really long time,
Hmm.
and sometimes she will, not always. It's pretty rare, but occasionally you'll notice that she will do kind of a rumor roundup, and she'll kind of go through some of the leaks and some of
Uh-huh.
the upcoming potential products and concepts. But she's very politically savvy in the way she does it, and she's smart. And I
Yeah.
I have great respect for her in that sense, because I think she toes the line well in the sense of she does a lot of positives in her reviews, but kind of in between that she will dip her toe into that more gray area, but without kind of fully ever committing, like
Uh-huh.
she isn't going to kind of be bringing up dummy units anytime soon. And I think the same is true like for Marquez. Like occasionally he'll do like rumor roundups, and so did the media companies. Like if you look at like CNET and The Verge, like they'll often do that too. But I think it is kind of when you almost cross that line, that's kind of where Apple maybe sees it as being a little bit too far. Like you don't want to be kind of in the Gizmodo world where you actually get hold of a real product.
Yeah, that's
But yeah, dummy units, you know.
I feel like the difference between a rumor roundup and then something like an original leak is well that's what it is. It's an original leak and then the rumor roundups couldn't exist
Yeah,
without that. It's
yeah,
interesting to know that
exactly.
there's a group of people at Apple deciding these things. Is that a
Yeah, There is. I mean, Apple take PR like super seriously. I think if you kind of go back to kind of when Steve Jobs was at Apple, he had his head of PR was a woman called Katie Cotton, who she's sadly passed away since. But she was very fiercely protective of Apple's brand image of Steve Jobs. And one of the things that she said, which always stuck with me, is that everybody at Apple is in the business of selling products. And she just said, look, my job isn't to be nice to reporters. My job is to shine a light on and spotlight Apple's products in the best possible way. And in that, she was very effective at her job. And so I think kind of her successors have kind of taken that on spiritually, if not physically.
Yeah. I, it is kind of interesting because Apple seems like so much more than just its products. It's like it's a whole, what do they call it?
Alt.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the word cult used a lot. Like it's there's a reason that I think there's like sites like Cult of Mac that exist. I think what it is. People that work at Apple genuinely care. Like they want to build the
yeah.
best possible products for people. And they really do. And sometimes I think they don't always succeed. Like they're human. Like mistakes happen, and like stuff that we've seen recently with Apple Intelligence. Like you can bet that that wasn't something that they wanted to happen, but it still did. Um, but I think people feel so impassioned by the mission that it kind of almost takes on a sort of it can feel a little bit almost like I'm not gonna like I don't know if cult is the right word, but it definitely yeah, like you can kind of feel the energy behind it, and people are really bought in. Like I mean, Apple employees are customers too. Like they use the products, and
Right.
they want to build things that they want to use for themselves. So they design things in that way. And it was like Steve Jobs, I think he once said something about like how if you were building a really beautiful like cabinet or like a kind of a sideboard, you want to finish the back of it so that it looks just as good as the front, even though you'll never see the back of it. It's still
Hmm.
important to kind of show that level of it of attention. Or like yeah, like a Christmas tree, like I'm that person that doesn't bother to decorate the back of it because it's just up in the corner. But you can bet that Steve, he'd have had the decorations all the way around.
But yeah, people always say that about Steve, like Steve would be rolling in his grave or whatever when Apple does stuff. But whenever you actually look at a lot of the weird details they all do come from one person, which is really cool. Like still the insides of iPhones, how they say taptic engine. I think they do, right? I know on an older
They
iPad.
do, yeah.
Yeah. My friend smashed his iPad and he sent me a picture of him holding the taptic engine, all branded and neat looking. So that's really interesting how most of the PR, or a lot of the PR at least, is just from one dude. Oh, I guess Asher cut out. See here? He does that IRL. Like we'll be talking and I just do that.
I'm here.
Um,
Hold on.
okay. You're good, bro. You take your time. I'm reading here. Okay,
I'm trying
so
to switch. Hold on.
you know the crossroads at Apple Park? Like in between the things, how they promote collaboration. I always hear like they're trying to promote collaboration, but then I also hear that there's like separate teams that aren't supposed to talk to each other. So like how you supposed to
Yeah.
collaborate or not?
Yeah, it almost seems to be a bit of a clash there, because on the one hand, true, like even Apple Park's design, like the whole kind of reason it was designed as like this circular spaceship style campus was, to kind of encourage almost those chance meetings between employees and to kind of spark
Hmm.
ideas and to do just that, like encourage collaboration and innovation. But then on the other hand, Apple does silo teams to reduce the risk of leaks, and so you'll have one person or one team that is working on one thing, one team that is working on a completely different part of the software or the product, and so you know things are shared sometimes on a need to know basis, but that does make it harder to achieve that kind of bigger goal around yeah, those kind of collaborative, almost randomized meetings that will just occur on campus.
Do you think that hinders them a little bit? Like if Apple didn't care about leaks and they were just able to work however working should get done to make the best product possible, not regarding leaks whatsoever, you think like that would result in something good?
It's a good question, and I think that it depends on how you look at it, because Apple very much believes in the art of surprise and delight. And it's like,
Hmm.
I was always the kid at Christmas that used to like try and find the presents before it was Christmas Day. And I think that kind of, as an adult, like as kind of kind of like an Apple fanboy, and if you're kind of into like the rumors and so on, like I think we're all kind of just like the adult version of our childlike selves, looking for
Hmm.
our presents before we should. And so there is real power in just being blown away by something that you were not expecting, and you enjoy it more. I think you do genuinely appreciate it more, but it's still exciting. Like it's still exciting to kind of just speculate and figure out what might be coming around the corner. So I think that strengthens Apple's brand, and I think that definitely is a net positive overall. But to your point, Asher, I think if you were to bring down the curtain a little bit and allow people to collaborate, then maybe it might be a positive. Maybe it would lead to some cool ideas. There are cross-functional teams, and but there are no committees at Apple. So like each part of Apple is run very much like a startup in nature. But there is definitely cross collaboration. It's just very controlled cross collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that would be nice though, because the Mac team could fix everything, could make
Yeah,
everything great again. Dude, what was I just
yeah.
gonna say? Go ahead. I'm gonna think about something. I had cool anecdote.
So I got a random question for you,
Yeah.
Mr. JB. How many Apple products do you own? And, well, okay, three questions. How many do you own? Do you keep your old products when you get a new one? And do you own a product in every category?
Good question. I have so many Apple products, I probably couldn't tell you how many. I do keep my old products most of the time. Not always. Like there's sometimes situations where I may not. Like I buy all my like all the stuff that I review and like my own content creation. I buy and own the products, and I
Right.
keep them. So for the most part, like I won't get rid of them. They're like my children. They live in boxes, and I keep them aside. But yeah, I probably do own a product in every category. I have an Apple Vision Pro. I have like a MacBook Pro, an iPhone, Apple. Hey, there we go, repping for Vision Pro. Love that.
The only human I
I have a
know with
Pro.
a Vision Pro.
Well, now
Asher
you know.
doesn't
Now
have
you know
one.
too.
Yeah, no, I know too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like I even have like a Pro Display XDR. So I probably
I'm not
have
that cool
product
yet.
in
I
each.
haven't gone there. My display right now is the one from 2012 or
Oh,
13 or
he,
whatever.
he has an Apple
Oh
display,
yeah.
but it's like old.
I do. But like, look. Here's the Apple display camera. This is the Apple display camera from 2013 or whatever, and then this is my 16 Pro Max camera. That was like, wow, wild worlds apart.
The fact that it
So
even
Yeah, the
has
that's
this
cool.
cameras
is
the
cool.
cameras definitely need some work.
Uh-huh. The fact that you do have everyone in every category. You got your Macs, iPads, iPhone, Watch, Vision up. Do you always get the newest of everything? I mean, I saw you were rocking the Ultra too.
Yeah, I do tend to get the latest if I can. I just enjoy it. Like I think I'm somebody that just gets a lot of fulfillment and enjoyment from the products themselves, and kind of
Right.
staying up to date not only helps kind of my knowledge to stay relevant and current for like content creation, but I just genuinely enjoy it. And I think people like people won't hesitate to go out and spend a ton of money on like specific clothing items like luxury brands and so on. That's not me. Instead, I'd rather spend my money on things that I get fulfillment from, which is expensive Apple
Right.
gadgets.
Yeah.
So what computer do you rock?
So currently, actually, funnily enough, I've just said that, but actually, my MacBook isn't the latest MacBook. So I'm running an M2 Max MacBook Pro, but it is the fully spec'd out version with like 96 gig
Oh,
of RAM.
you'll be good.
So yeah, I just didn't see enough of a reason for me to upgrade to like the M3 or M4 variants. Maybe next year,
Right.
and I guess the design hadn't changed all that much, but yeah, maybe like I'm using a 16 Pro Max currently, and I've got like the latest M4 iPad Pro. But yeah, I think there wasn't a meaningful enough change on the Mac for me to
Right.
upgrade, and like it's more powerful than anything that I'll ever need, to be honest.
Yeah.
like a Mac Mini or a Mac Studio?
I don't have a Mac Mini or a Mac Studio, no. So what I do is I actually put my Mac into clamshell mode, and I'll hook it
Gotcha.
up because it's just so powerful. Like there just isn't any need for
Right.
me to have a separate machine.
I
Yeah,
convinced
that's.
Asher to buy a Mac Mini recently, and so both of us are full in on the Mac Mini right now.
I mean, it's
Well,
amazing. Like the new Mac Mini, like
Oh
I
yeah.
think like how they've built it to be so small and compact, and to have that amount of performance, like it's science fiction stuff.
I mean, even this is like thin, dude. The M series chips was such a big deal. That was 2020, right? So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
2020 when the first
it was the
M1
first big
chips rolled
event.
out, like towards the end
'Cause
of the year.
that's
Yeah,
what I have right here. I got a 2020 M1 MacBook Air.
Y'all had to be excited
yeah.
about that, dude. Like that's. Did you know before? Are you allowed to say that? If you knew that
I
M
didn't
series
know.
chips? Uh-huh.
No, I genuinely didn't know. But I think when I found out, I think it just made logical sense because the silicon was getting so advanced on the iPhone and the iPad, and any kind of like I know a lot of people have complaints about iPad OS and the limitations there, but the hardware is so capable that I think it was inevitable that they would do it because the not only for the performance gains, but I think it was mostly like the power efficiency and the thermal management because some of the MacBooks were around like the butterfly keyboard MacBook.
Hmm.
It was an amazing design, but the problem is that it was so firmly constrained by Intel's chips that I think Apple had no choice but to kind of pursue this because some of the products that they made today just wouldn't exist if they were using Intel machines. Not unless they were like three, 2 or 3 times the thickness. So yeah, I think it was inevitable, and it was the best, like one of the best decisions they've made in the last few years, in my opinion.
That being
Probably
said,
the
right?
best.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
easily. So we started off with the M1 the M chips, right? Now we have the cellular modems. Do you think the next 15, 20 years Apple makes everything? Like you think that's the future?
I mean, Apple believes in owning the primary technologies, so I think that they like to own as much of the stack that they can, and but I think they really like to kind of zoom back a little. Like when I say primary technologies, I mean like the fundamentals that really like drive the brains of the product. So
And that
Apple
make a
Silicon is one
difference.
example. Yeah, exactly. Like Samsung, for example, make a lot of the displays in an
Hmm.
iPhone, but the customer isn't like necessarily going to know that because Samsung make amazing displays. But what they would know is if Apple wasn't using their own chips on the inside because the performance would arguably be worse, the thermal performance wouldn't be as good. So never say never, but I think they really focus on the technologies that they think that are going to have the biggest competitive difference. Like I think like the display glass is made in, Kentucky, and Apple has never felt the need to kind of go out and do that themselves because they found a reliable partner that can. So it really, I think they look at it on a case by case basis.
Right.
Yeah.
Until they get to the point where the display glass does limit them. And they're like, we've optimized everything else except for the display glass. Now it's inhibiting our
Yeah,
performance or whatever, right?
yeah, maybe. I mean, there's rumors, isn't there, of like a foldable iPhone potentially for next year? And
Right.
my opinion on that is if they're going to do it, they need to do it without a
No
crease. Like
seam.
that's kind
Yeah.
of yeah, exactly. And that's kind of where like you can guarantee that Apple will want to have the higher stakes in that. They may not like be the manufacturer, but they'll probably be doing all they can to help with the design of it.
I don't
Right.
see
I got a
ceramic
pop
shield
question.
being good.
Case or no
Yeah.
case?
Depends on the day. I
It's the
like a
right
case
answer.
if yeah, honestly, like I like I like the silicon cases. I like the different colors of the silicon
Okay.
cases. But the design of the phone is so nice that sometimes it just seems a shame to cover it up. So if I'm feeling
Right.
brave, I'll rock it without a case. But yeah, I'm pretty clumsy, so yeah, I pretty
Okay.
much need a
So
case.
follow up question. Number one, I think it's annoying that the cases, the silicone cases, don't match the wallets perfectly. That's
Yeah,
like,
fix it.
if I'm gonna buy a wallet, fix like let me buy a wallet that matches my case. Or you know
Make
what'd
him
be
fix
Yeah.
it,
great?
dude.
Give me a phone case that matches my natural colors of my phone and wallet. But totally side note, Apple Care, yes or no? Do you buy it on all your products, only some of your products, or not at all?
I buy it on most of my products. I don't actually buy it on my iPhone, funnily enough, because I have separate insurance,
Okay.
which covers it. So I don't need it, and it's pretty good insurance. But for most of my products, especially like if it's more expensive, like my MacBook Pro, I have Apple Care. I have it on my Pro display. on the Vision Pro, yeah, for sure.
I
But
paid the
like if it's
extra
less
500.
expensive device, maybe not.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, it was
I'm in
painful, right?
the. I know. I'm well because mine. I got the terabyte, so I like. I'm at the 4500 or whatever it ended at 45 plus. But I'm in the boat of I always buy Apple Care no matter what. I mean, I got it on my watch. I got it on my like whatever I can because for me, I don't use a case ever. I use my wallet and I use my phone, and so I went through 3 iPhone 15s, mostly because I am
What? Wait,
more
I didn't know that.
adventurous. Yeah, I'm more
Yeah.
adventurous with my phone because I know I have Apple Care. I'm like I can get a new one for $100, right?
I did.
So the reason I went through them was because the first time I just like I had never had anything happen to my phone before, and I dropped it, and you know like when you drop it, how it like slightly dents on the edges sometimes. Well, that slight dent didn't cause any issues, but then I went and I took it underwater. Supposed to be waterproof, right? Well, because it had that dent, it had broken the seal just enough that water got behind the screen.
Ah,
And then after that, I took it, I got a replacement, I paid the $100, whatever. Then the second time, I dropped it and cracked the back glass on a like I was running on my shorts. A rock like landed on gravel, chips the whole back glass. And then I went to get in the car like next 2 weeks, whatever. I hadn't gotten it fixed yet. I went to get in the car. And I grabbed, oh yeah, back glass crack.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I feel the
I
pain.
That'll ruin
I was
your
holding.
waterproof thing.
Where'd my phone go? I was holding the phone, right? This is not the phone, but I was holding. I don't use it. This is my case on my second phone. I have a second phone. I was holding the phone, and I went to grab the door handle of the car, like like this, and I grabbed it, and it fell, and it cracks the whole like full up face down, just cracks the whole front glass. So I made an appointment at the Apple Store that day and got a new one as well. So Apple Care, I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And my
Okay.
new one,
You
I
also
haven't.
use
I've
your tech like a
survived.
crazy person, dude. He shoots 4K
What do you
120
mean?
everything. That's
I
I also
mean,
have a terabyte.
yeah,
not
I
anymore.
respect that. I'm definitely 4K 120.
Well, then you get
Well, because here's the deal, right? I pay for a
Y'all are
terabyte.
both
I mean,
crazy
I bought a
people.
terabyte of storage on my phone, right? So if I'm gonna buy the storage I need, and if I'm gonna do it, I can always scale that down, but I can never scale that up. So like, if I'm gonna be filming, I might as well be filming in 4K 120, unless I know that like I'm just filming a still object. I'll shoot in 4K 60. But even then, like
That's
I don't
like
shoot in ProRes. I don't shoot in ProRes
Yeah.
yet.
you don't need to
Only
shoot
if I
better
need to.
videos to fill up your storage. That's like buying a Ridge wallet and then intentionally being poorer so you have less money to keep in your Ridge wallet.
But I'm not going to use the storage anywhere else.
I mean, ProRes, like it's insane. Like I went to a couple of gigs last year and recorded a lot of stuff in ProRes, and I just completely forgot. Like I didn't even intend to. I think I'd actually toggled it on, but inadvertently at one point, and just left it on. And luckily, I had like a 500. I had a 512 gigabyte 15 Pro Max at that point, and yeah, it was full. It took ages to export, but
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Wait,
I will not make that mistake again.
At
do you
least use
need
an
an
external
external?
SSD.
Well, do you need an external SSD? I have a
Not to
16
not to
Pro
record
and
it.
it always makes me.
Wait, to
Is
do
it co-
what? To do ProRes?
to do ProRes video?
Mine doesn't make me. Hold on. Let me I mean, I can
What?
try it.
Yeah,
Look.
maybe like, do you have like the lower storage model
Yeah,
potentially?
I have 128. Is that why?
Yeah,
That's your
maybe
problem.
Oh, that's
that
Pretty
annoying.
sure
might
it's
be why. 'Cause
512 and 1.
Dude,
yeah,
I'll
I
go up
think at one
here.
point in time as well, you had to have like 256 minimum to even be able to use
Oh,
ProRes.
yeah, it won't let you. ProRes not supported.
Yeah, that's goofy. I
So
have
I have
an
a question.
SSD.
Do you think there is a future where Apple charges less for storage or includes more storage for the same price? Or do you think that they are like they're so deep in the hole that they're never going to change it? Because like for example, I was thinking today, I was in my room and I saw my boxes because I have all my boxes, right? Of the products I still have. And we have a 3 terabyte airport capsule, right? And obviously that's like 15 years old. But I was looking at it and I was like 3 terabytes, like this thing wasn't crazy expensive as they are today. Like obviously you're still paying for the equipment, but like this is 3 terabytes of storage, and I don't remember exactly what the price was, but I'm like, it's not what a MacBook, $800 for 1 terabyte. So I was like, it wasn't, you can get a 2 terabyte MacBook. It wasn't $1,600 for this airport. Have they just gone up in price? Like, what do you think the real future is for the pricing in the storage models?
I think Apple is a company that isn't necessarily focused on value. Well, they focused on value in many ways, but I think when it comes to storage, I think they're less focused on value. I think they know that their price laddering structure, it's a way where they can extract more profit, like the same with their RAM as well. I think maybe it changes. I mean, like if people vote with their wallets and they don't buy the higher end storage models because the prices are too high, then maybe it forces Apple to lower prices a little bit. If there's enough customer feedback, maybe it pressures Apple to change. But I think that's kind of an area that people have been kind of complaining about for a few years now, and we're not really seeing
Right.
Apple change all that much. Then again, like I mean, this isn't to defend Apple, but I guess SSDs and the performance of them certainly has gotten a lot better in recent years. So no doubt the cost of the chips has gone up, but not to the extent that Apple charges.
I mean,
It's very much a business decision.
and they're
Based
going to
on
lock their
recent,
products behind larger storage. I mean, like that's like the nanotexture display. You have to get the one
oh, that's
terabyte or the 2 terabyte.
That's ridiculous.
So they're gonna. I mean, because that's
Yeah.
what they're doing. They are price laddering it, where it's like, oh, you want our new feature, you have to get more storage, and we're gonna charge you lots of money for more storage anyway.
Well, I think based on like
Yeah,
recent stuff,
I wasn't hot on that.
what they're gonna do would be like just launch it at a higher storage capacity for the same price. Because that's what
Yeah, I mean,
the pattern has been.
maybe. Yeah, like it's 256 gig is like the standard on like the Pro Max now, isn't it? Whereas a few years ago you could still get that 128. So maybe that happens. But I think it's interesting because when I think about it, like just a few years ago, I was managing quite comfortably on a 16 gigabyte iPhone, and now like 16 gigabytes, like that wouldn't even handle like if a few apps. And I think it's just because software has become so much more complicated. I mean, Apple Intelligence, like the models, like those alone would take up all of that storage. So it's stuff is getting more sophisticated, and I think the storage has had to kind of go up
Right.
to match that.
With the
Do you
technology.
have an iPhone 1? Do you have an iPhone 1 or an
2G.
I do
iPhone?
have I do have an original iPhone. Yeah, I've got it
What
boxed up.
storage?
Mine is I think mine's a 4 gig if I recall.
Or
Yeah, if I remember rightly. Well, actually, I got the original iPhone before it was out in the UK, so I had to kind of buy it through eBay and get it shipped to the
uh
UK. But because it was locked to I guess what would have been AT&T at that
carrier.
point, like I had to jailbreak it in order to be able to use my SIM card. But it wasn't an
Right.
issue because like even 3G wasn't on the original iPhone.
Yeah. I also have an iPhone 1 or whatever, and I think I got the 8 gig one we have. So
I didn't
it's
know this. You don't tell me
you
any
didn't
of
know
this
that.
stuff.
So
No.
I'm an Apple user since birth. So the iPhone came out a day before my birthday, the day I was born. So my
Wow.
dad and mom waited in line to get the iPhone the day before
So
I
so
was
did
born,
you.
right? Right. And so they waited in line. We got all the way to the front. They ran out 2 people in front of my parents. And my dad wasn't going to get the 4 gigabyte model. He wanted the 8 gigabyte. So they drove across the whole city to a different
Dude.
store and got the 8 gigabyte model. And then the next day, I was born, and there's photos of me as a baby with the iPhone. So like I've literally been an Apple user since birth. It's hilarious.
That's insane. Like, I actually can't remember what the base storage of the original iPhone is now. Like, now you just said it, I was thinking mine was 4 gig. Maybe it was 8 gigabyte. Like, I know it was the lowest that you could get
Yeah,
because
I think maybe it's 8
I
and
was I was
16.
at school and it was all I could afford. Yeah.
What was, I'm going to look it up.
Yeah,
What was the
dude. Apple has
iPhone?
you, Asher. They have you
I
by their
know.
grasp.
I'm
You're
literally like
you're
looking at my
you're an
desk right
Apple
now, and I have
lamb,
like
dude.
all my products. I was born into it.
Yeah, get
Okay,
them while they're young.
before we go,
I mean, that's what they're doing.
let's talk about Apple Intelligence. I know you had nothing to
Let's.
do with this, nor did
You
a
mean the
lot of
lack
people.
thereof?
Yeah,
The lack thereof, Asher.
yeah, that's exactly what I
No,
mean.
you
What
were
do you
right.
think
It
happened,
was
dude?
It was 4, 8, and 16. So my
So
dad got
maybe I
the
did have the
16
4.
gigabyte.
Yeah.
So what do you think happened with Apple Intelligence? Just based on what you know about Apple.
So I think that there's kind of two parts to it. I think there's this narrative that Apple was kind of caught flat-footed by ChatGPT and OpenAI and so on, and I think that to some extent that there is some truth to that. But Apple has been doing research on large language models for many years, like over a decade, and they've been making serious investments in on-device intelligence, or as Apple calls it, machine learning, for years. Like I think like the iPhone 10 from 2017 shipped with a neural engine. So did the iPhone 8 that came out the same year. So they've been making these strategic investments in AI for a really long time. I think though the difference is that OpenAI have kind of taken large language models and turned it into a consumer product, whereas most of the AI that has been on an iPhone historically, it's kind of been invisible. It's been sort of behind the scenes
Behind
stuff
the scenes, yeah.
that you can't see. Yeah. So I think kind of this sudden jump to a consumer facing product like these chatbots, that wasn't something that I think Apple had on the horizon. But I found it interesting actually, because Apple isn't normally a company that is pressured by like the 90-day investor clock. So, you know, when Tim kind of does his spiel every 3 months on the quarterly earning reports, like he talks about that, like that they manage Apple for the long term and not just to respond to kind of trends and so on. But I think AI, it is turning out to be pretty transformative in terms of what it can do, and Apple recognize that, and I think they're trying to respond to that as quickly as they can. I think there was probably some pressure from investors, but they also, I think that like if you think back a few years ago, like this is kind of related, but remember Apple Maps and how bad that was when it first shipped.
Yeah.
You know, that was because they shipped something before it was ready, and so normally Apple tries to avoid doing that, but whenever they've done this, like it's always gone horribly wrong. Like look at AirPower, right? Like that product never even shipped, but they announced it, and like the memes are still around the internet even today. So I think with Apple Intelligence, it was kind of a case of they had the research, and they have the people to kind of materialize LLMs into what it is today with Apple Intelligence, but I think they needed longer to cook. In my opinion, I think that they shouldn't have bowed to the pressure and maybe just given it an extra year to continue working on it and really get it right. But I do get it that as a publicly traded company, sometimes there are those pressures, and you know, in the tech space, it's always like, you know, if you don't innovate, then it can kind of lead to, you know, your decline. That said, I don't think this is a situation like what happened with like Nokia when the iPhone came out, or like BlackBerry. I don't believe that, because Apple is much bigger than Nokia or BlackBerry ever were. Like they have so many resources. I mean, they have more like Apple's like market cap is worth more than several countries combined, right? So they've got time to fix this. But I think that it was unwise for them to kind of just go out there and put the product out into the world straight away.
I mean, it seems
There's some
weird.
parts of it I do like, though.
I guess
Do
it
you
is
think that this
pressure.
is better for Apple? Because from the sense, like I know, obviously the rumors are that Apple has had to, or supposedly is having to, like restart Siri, right? And from the way that, from my understanding of how Siri has been built, it was basically like we started with code, we started with parameters. It's kind of stayed that way the whole time. Do you think that this shift has kind of forced their hand to, we're going to have to restart, rather than trying to run these new things with an old development style?
You know, I think it's maybe a combination of factors. I think that on the one hand, Apple designs products for a really wide variety of different users and different use cases. Like they design products for like grandmas as much as they do for really advanced users. And I think that Siri as it is today, although, you know, it's flawed in many ways, I think for kind of like really basic tasks like controlling like accessories in the home, if you have home accessories, or setting like a timer, like some of those more basic tasks, like it's stuff that functionally anybody can use. But sort of like that vision I think people have had for a really advanced chatbot, there have been different or kind of competing visions for what that should look like within Apple. And if the rumors are true, like this isn't my knowledge, this is just pure speculation here, but allegedly there are kind of like these different competing visions, or there have been historically. And I think what OpenAI and kind of with like Google with Gemini and so on, I think they kind of forced that conversation to kind of come forward, or kind of like they forced it higher up the agenda than it was. I don't think it wasn't that they weren't looking at ways to improve Siri. I think it was just that they felt that they had time maybe, and now they don't. Now, like, it's a more kind of urgent thing that they need to address. I don't think this is I don't think this is existential for Apple. Like, provided they continue to like they course correct and they manage it properly moving forward. But
I mean, they did it with
I
maps.
think that yeah, exactly. They did it with maps. Like they've done this before with loads of products where like they've kind of turned stuff around. I mean, look, back in the 1990s, like Apple was 90 days away from bankruptcy, and then they
Hmm.
bought in Next and Steve Jobs, and like now Apple's the largest company on the planet. So I think the one thing I would say to anybody about Apple is don't bet against them, because there are some of the most extraordinary and talented people there, even if they do make a lot of mistakes. But we hold Apple in really high regard, so they come with a high level of accountability.
Yeah, they do a lot of stuff. The mistake to not mistake ratio definitely isn't insane or anything. But I don't. I'd like to see a future for Apple Intelligence, just like maps. Like I don't think people really think about that anymore. It took how many years? Like more than maps is 10 years old.
Yeah, I mean, older than that. I think it shipped in, I want to say 2012 with the iPhone 5. So like iOS 6. So it's actually like 13 years old this year, Maps. But now, arguably, it's as good as Google Maps, if not better in some
I think it's
respects.
better, at least in the United States.
I
Yeah,
just
like
wish they had like more robust reporting features, because like yeah, it's great, but like if I want to report a cop, I want to report a cop on this side of the road or on the other side of the road or hidden.
yeah.
But I understand that it's like the
Is that
Apple
illegal, Sam?
way
Can you do
to.
that in Google Maps?
No, you can do that in ways, right? So like yeah, I
You can
know they're
report
they're
a
different,
cop?
right? But yeah, why do you think we use
Yeah.
Waze? But yeah, so you
I
know, like
don't
in
know.
Waze, you have 9 different selections, and each selection has like 3 different options within that selection. So if I say hazard, I can say hazard on road, hazard on side of road, or hazard stopped car, right?
Uh-huh.
Or with cop, I can say undercover or hidden, other side, or just a normal one, right? So if I'm driving this way and I see one on the other side, I click other side, right? So I just wish I had that. But Asher, you want to see the photo of me with the iPhone?
Yeah, yeah. Share your screen if it lets you.
Can you see it?
No. How would I see it? What are you doing?
I hit share my
Oh,
screen.
you
Oh wait, hold on,
texted it
dismiss.
to me?
No. I hit share screen. Allow to share window. Let me try. All right, you see it now?
Oh, it's not in the
Wow.
box. Dude, why do you look like your dad? Oh, because he's your dad.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
look at
that makes
that.
sense. Bro, he
That's
looks
crazy,
just
isn't it?
like you. He does the smile thing.
Thank you. That's where I get it from.
I think
But
if one thing
the
I'm going to take
inception
away
is
from this
crazy.
podcast, like if I could take one thing away from this podcast, I'm going to take away how old you've both made me feel all of a sudden. Like the fact that you had like an iPhone there,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
was in like my
I was
last year of
afraid that would
school or
happen.
something when the original iPhone came out. Yeah,
I mean, dude, talk about iPad baby. You're like day one. You're like first gen freaking brain rot nano child, dude. Look at
Hey man,
you.
I didn't really use it. I didn't use it. I didn't start like on electronics. I was like 11. But
We all know you did. Well, thank you.
bro, the Fling Bird game.
Oh,
You don't
the
know what that is
Angry
because you didn't
Birds?
have an iPhone. No. There was a game on the iPhone 1. Okay.
Uh-huh. 2G,
Now this
yeah.
was like years. This was years later, right? This is obviously when I was like 8 years old, because it's we still have it. It still works. I just forgot the password. But there was a game that was like Angry Birds, except you went up and you jumped from like pedestal to pedestal, and you would fling a bird, and you'd
Oh, I
fling
know
the
what you're
bird
talking
to
about.
one of the pedestals.
I know what you're
You know what I'm
talking
talking
about.
about, right?
I had an iPhone
Yeah.
3G when I was like
So you
five.
were an iPad kid.
Well, I found one and then I broke it like 2 weeks after I found it. I
Okay.
dropped out of the car and it just like exploded. But I can see JB Soul leaving his body because of how old he feels right now.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. I am absolutely like old, but you know what? It's always interesting just to hear about kind of like when people first started to use Apple products and like what their first product was, because everyone kind of has their own individual memory of what that was like. And like my first ever Apple product was an iPod Mini, and I still love the iPod Mini. It's still a really beautiful piece of hardware even now. Like it's not functional anymore. Like you can't sync it, but
the mini. What's the mini?
yeah.
Is that before the Nano?
Yeah, this was like before the iPod Nano. So the iPod Mini actually only had one generation, and it still had like it had a mechanical hard drive in it. And then the next year they replaced it with the Nano, which was pretty insane because the Mini was super popular. But then they went to like solid state, and yeah, the rest was history.
I have an iPod Nano. I love that aluminum thing. Started. Okay, before we go, I have two things to show you. First of all,
Go for it.
I have iPhone Air. I'm just kidding. It's not going to be that thin. This is a failed print. Imagine it was. It's just the back of it. Weird design. That's not what
Is
I'm showing you.
did,
What are you saying?
did you 3D print that yourself?
Yeah, I 3D printed it. It was supposed to have the middle section too, but they like broke apart, and now I have like this comically thin iPhone Air 3D print. Um,
That's the 2045 edition.
yeah, yeah,
I
that's
have a
where they're
random
going.
question. Is Apple gonna call the iPhone 20 the iPhone XX?
I
That
was
sounds
thinking about
stupid.
this the other day, and you know, I actually think that they like. I don't normally encourage Apple to copy other companies, but I actually think that they should just take a leaf out of Samsung's playbook and just add the year on the end of it, because
Dude,
at
that's
this
what
point,
I'm
like the
saying.
numbers just
And they
sound
should
kind of
do that with
insane. Yeah,
they should do that with everything too.
yeah,
I
it
mean,
iPhone,
would just
it
make
makes
so much more
sense,
sense.
but if you do the year, then like what happens if okay? Because what happens if I think we have seen over the past year that Apple is trying to move towards a comprehensive. Because Asher and I were talking about this the other day, like a comprehensive. What would every single like Apple wants every product to fit for every user, right? And we were
oh,
discussing
dude,
specifically the iPad lineup. We were discussing the iPad minis, the iPad Pros, the iPads, the iPad
I
Airs.
could go
It's like, well,
all
the
day
iPad
about
mini
the
is more
iPad
expensive than the
lineup.
iPad Airs, right? So we were talking about this, and like, I guess they're kind of trying to do that with the iPhones, with the new iPhone 16e. And so my
Yeah,
question then becomes like, if you just add the year, well, then number one, I mean, I guess it could be beneficial because it's like, well, I have the 2025. People like now associate that with now their device is old, but also like it doesn't, in my opinion, with the years, it's like you're not displaying progression in technology as much as you're just displaying time, right? Like the M, if you like, it
yeah.
wouldn't be justifiable to say this is the MacBook Pro Intel compared to the MacBook Pro M series.
Well,
Like
they're
you
trying
couldn't
to do
just
everything
call
by
that
the
the
chip now.
2019 versus the 2020, right? And that's true. The chip is what they've gone.
Well,
So
is that are they
I
going to
do
be
think
consistent?
Apple's
Are we going to get an iPhone
well.
A18 Pro, A19 Pro? That sounds dumb.
I don't I don't think they're going to do that with the iPhones. I think with the iPhones they're going to keep the numbering structure and they're just going to try to move to they want the number tied to the phone and now you have a 16e, a 17, a 17 Pro, a 17 Pro Max and then it's like every person has their I mean if you go to the Apple website right now, it shows all three phones all in an order with all three of their things. It says meet the iPhone 16 family, right?
But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can see where you're coming from. I think because there needs to be a way for customers to kind of see the progression in the technology. I guess like if you kind of backing up to Samsung, like they have like I think like the Galaxy S 20 like 5 fan edition, which is basically like the 16e in Apple's lineup, and then they'll have like the regular S 25, the plus, and then like the ultra. So I don't know, I think Apple could make it work, but I can see an argument on both sides. I just
yeah,
wonder, like, by the time we get to like the iPhone 40, it's just gonna sound a little crazy. It already
I
kind of
mean,
does.
we can talk like as much shit about the lineup, but at the end of the day, it's not. If you look at it relative to like Samsung or whatever, not that bad of a lineup. But I have something to present to you. If you could tell your connections at Apple about this, okay? It's how to fix the iPad lineup. I have it figured out, okay? All right,
All right,
hear me
let's
out.
hear it.
At the bottom of the lineup, Okay, no, I'll start at the top. So at the top,
I
iPad
have
Pro,
my own thoughts on
great.
his lineup.
iPad Pro, how it is right now, right? Moving down,
Yeah.
iPad Air should be just as thin as the Pro because it's Air. That's what Air means. That's negligible. Moving down,
Yeah.
okay, no, no, part of the iPad Air, right? Forget the thin thing. iPad Air should come in three sizes. It should come in the two current ones, and then iPad Mini is just iPad Air in a smaller size because that's really what it is, with maybe a less powerful M chip, right? And then the other iPad is the iPad E.
I mean, I actually don't mind that because like the mini kind of like you're right, like the mini it's kind of almost like this go between, like it has the fully laminated display which the base iPad doesn't
Yeah.
have. It has a more powerful chip. It has
I
Apple
don't want my screen
Intelligence
to
which the
bend
base
when I
iPad
press
doesn't.
it, dude. That feels cheap.
I yeah, I actually just did a review on the 11th gen iPad, and that was the thing that really stands out for me whenever I use it. Is the display doesn't look bad from certain angles, but when you press it, you can see that gap between the
Yeah, dude.
display and the glass. And yeah, I have OCD for that, so
My
So,
complaint with your lineup, Asher, is the mini. In my opinion, I think the way Apple has designed their pricing structure and their naming schemes is Air means lower quality, and everyone like knows that, right? Like you said, the iPad Air, it's a cheaper and lower quality iPad. You're
then
not
why is
getting
it
the
better than
OLED. You're not getting those
the
things.
base iPad? If it means lower quality, why is it better quality than the iPad in the iPad Mini?
That's a great question.
I
But then
know.
iPad Mini is better. The iPad Mini has a better processor, has a better screen, has better like the iPad Mini is better. But have you seen the new
iPad Mini
OnePlus?
doesn't have
The way
better
that they've done their
processor.
phones.
Better processor
Huh?
than what?
The iPad Mini isn't better than the iPad Air.
No, no.
I th-
iPad Air has an M chip. iPad Mini has an A chip.
yeah.
it still does.
Yeah, it has the A17 Pro.
It really doesn't make sense now, does it?
No, it doesn't. That's the only reason you were fighting. No, dude. No, they have to put an
iPad
M chip
Pro,
in it, make
Air,
it an
iPad.
iPad Air in a smaller size. Normal iPad becomes iPad E, which justifies the price and the bendy screen and everything. Great for school, right? And then you have the Pro, which is for pros, and it's great. That's the lineup. That's the most confusing lineup, and it's fixed
Yeah.
now. It's
I don't
fixed.
know if I review will remember this, but like when like kind of after long after Steve came back to Apple, he put up this really famous grid on screen where there was kind of like
I know
four
what you're talking about.
quadrants. And yeah, on like the one side it was like professional, the one side it was consumer, and then it was like desktop and laptop, and there was like a product for each quadrant of the grid. And
Yep.
I feel like Apple's kind of trying to do that right now with the iPad. Like they have the Pro, they have the Air, they have the Mini, they have the regular iPad, but I think because iPadOS does have some baked in limitations, it kind of makes it difficult to justify where those products fit in the quadrant. So, yeah, like the Mini definitely has a lot more common with the Air than it does the regular iPad for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's the great thing about the Air and the Pro lineup is like, yeah, the Air is cheaper, right? But like at the same time, it doesn't really give you the feeling that it's like worse because it's special. Like someone might want an Air over a Pro, not just because it's cheaper. I think they
Yeah.
should use Air and Pro everywhere, which I guess they're gonna do with the iPhone. But I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do. Maybe we're freaking out too much about this. It's a company naming their
I,
products,
I
guys.
I just want them to give the iPad Mini promotion and an OLED display. If they did that,
Oh
then
yeah, dude.
I would be able to die happy.
And an OLED display. Well, then it's a
OLED's what we
smaller
Yeah.
need.
iPad Pro. Now
Yeah,
you just
it
screwed up the
would
whole
be. I
theory.
think I know, I'm sorry, Ash, but like it's just I love the iPad mini so much. Like it's just like the perfect size for so many things. Like
Oh
it's
yeah,
just like for reading, for like just like watching YouTube, just for getting cozy after work and stuff. Like I just love the size of it. But I
it's my only iPad.
can't help but notice. Yeah, and the thing is, like when you have I have an iPad Pro as well, but all of a sudden I'll miss the quality of the display when I start using the mini. So
Oh
if they
yeah.
could like, yeah, do promotion, give me OLED on the mini, I will be a happy boy.
Sometimes
So I mean, I have a Pro
I'll put the
too, and
iPad
so
mini
I
on top of my camera and I use it as a external as a monitor because I have like a
huh.
Nice.
I'll put it up on here and you can see everything a little bit clearer. And it's really weird and laggy and it looks awkward, but it's a nice screen and you can use it for so many different things like Like when I fly my drone, I put it there too.
Right.
What are you saying?
Hmm. I was
Asher.
just saying that's. I mean, it's nice to. Yeah, I mean, I think a simplified naming structure, because at the end of the day, it's about the person who comes to Apple and walks in the store and says, "Hey, I want something for XYZ." Or the person who goes online and goes, "Pro, I want the best. I'm going to buy a Pro." Right? Not
Yeah.
the person who looks at all the technical specifications and who compares all three beside each other, right? Like, it's for the person who looks at the name and buys the product. And I think, like, for example, Carter PC's Asher posted a video about it where he was like, I was just browsing my local Apple store, as I do, and I was hearing some old ladies having a conversation, and they were like, we want the newest but cheapest iPhone, 16E.
Who says
And
that
like they
though?
bought the 16E.
Who says
These
that?
people, these old ladies, like, Apple is doing like what
Like
JB said.
hold on
Like,
though.
you are
Hold on.
building one for every
Stop.
market.
Stop. Because I get that.
The
I
15
get
Pro is way better though.
I get that. Wanting something that like is the newest but the best. I mean the newest but the cheapest. But nobody says that. Why? I mean sure maybe someone says that.
My brother did it. He bought the iPhone 16e when I told him he should have brought the
Oh.
15 Pro.
Is it like a novelty factor like the 12 mini? Like it's still a 12 but it's like doesn't like screw up your wallet.
Probably. It's
Dude, I
about
love the 12
having the
mini.
16.
There's some
But it's
psychology
not
in
the
there. Like
16.
if
It's
you, yeah, like it isn't exactly the same as the 16, but it's like if you look at Apple's Q2 revenue report that just came out last week, iPhone revenue grew like 2% year over year, and I think that that was attributed specifically to the 16e. And like you're right, it's like I think for a lot of people there are other products that would be better, like even like last year's 15 Pro, but it's the psychology behind the name, and the fact that it's the latest number. It just spurs a lot of people to go and pick up that
I get
product,
it.
even if there are better alternatives. You know.
It would do so much better, I feel, if it looked like a 16 at least. It looks closer to a 13 than a 16. And I think that's
Yeah.
the part that really throws me off. And
Well,
that
Asher,
it's
we gotta
Yeah.
let him go,
$600.
right?
Yeah, we're gonna let you go. I want to show you
Okay.
something first.
All right,
I
you
don't
show
know
him your
if you.
thing, and
Okay,
I want to ask him about I want to ask him about the bingo and see
okay.
what his thoughts are.
And then we'll go. And then, yeah, we'll show you the thing. Okay, so this, I don't know if did they use these whenever you worked at Apple? It's a lunchbox. It's a
I
from Apple Park.
I don't think I've ever seen one of those in person, but I have seen them before online. Like, see,
Uh-huh.
Apple gives people a lot of merch. Like, I've got an umbrella with an Apple logo on it. I've got blankets with Apple logos that are
Uh-huh.
official. I've got water bottles from Apple. Like,
Love
pretty
Oh,
it.
your
much,
phone
like,
has an Apple
yeah.
logo on it.
My phone has an Apple
Yeah.
logo on it.
That's
Yeah,
crazy, bro.
yeah. But like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that they give out to employees, and it'll have like Apple branding. Like, I have this really nice backpack. Like, it's an In-Case backpack, but it was like a collaboration between Apple and In-Case. They only made it for employees, and like, if anything ever happens to that, I will be very very sad.
Wait, so I need to know, since you said backpack in case, right? I'm in the market for the perfect tech bag because right now I have this great bag. It's a Swiss, okay, and it's amazing, but it's not a tech bag. Like, I want a bag where I can put all my cables organized, all my dongles organized, my iPad, my iPhone, my MacBook Air. I want to be able to put my Vision Pro in there potentially. Like, what bag you recommend?
I am probably the wrong person to ask that question because I'm really bad with this myself. Like I've like tried several different bags to just get the perfect one. I mean Asher's got it right there.
Use
That is
this.
it.
Yeah, your
Yeah,
iPad
that's
mini
it.
slides in like an Apple box to go, and then you could throw a sandwich in there. It's great.
Yeah, the one I'm using at the moment, like I can't remember the name of it. It is also made by Encase, but it has like a roll cage on the inside of it for the laptop. Like so at the back, there's like this hard, like almost like rubbery plastic shell, and you put your MacBook or your iPad in there, and then it snaps closed with a magnet at the top, and then the rest of it just looks like a regular backpack. You can shove whatever in there.
Right. I've been looking into the mouse ones because those look fancy,
Yeah,
like
like
waterproof and
mouse make
everything.
great products. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
All right. I'm trying to
Show
see.
them the
Yes.
bingo,
Oh,
and then
here's
we're
the
gonna go.
bingo. I found it. All
Tell them,
right.
tell them to
Bingo.
pick
So,
five.
Okay.
Tell them to pick five.
all right. I'm gonna share my screen with you real quick. Share, share window,
I decided to
share this
stand up now.
window. Do you see it?
All right. Okay.
So here's the question, right? Obviously, Apple Park is free. Now the question is, do you think like we will get one more thing? So like for I don't know why Visionaire is on here twice. Ignore that. But basically, the point is during the WWDC, we mark things off as they happen, and so it's like
Yeah.
when they say coming later this year, boom, mark that off. Asher said that macOS is going to be named Mammoth. That's his guess, right? We'll get AirPods Health, so maybe AirPods Heart related, like maybe they'll announce something like that. Okay, mark it off. Or circle icons, mark it off. So what are your like? Some of this stuff is like obviously it's coming later this year. Definitely, it's going to be said, right? What do you think? With like the Apple Intelligence on the watch, what are your favorites from the screen?
What are my favorites? I think my favorites would be okay. I'll do one from each row. So I'd say top row. I think circle icons, just because I'm down for a new user interface. Like I think it's time. I think it'd be time to have something fresh. So I'm gonna
Right.
say
Okay,
circle
circle
icons.
icons. Hold on,
Yeah,
are
I'm gonna
these are
say a
these?
one.
I have a question real quick. Are these what you think is
Go on.
gonna happen, or what you want to happen? Either one.
This is what I want to happen. It's
Okay.
pure speculation.
All
Yeah.
right. Circle icons.
Circle icons. I'm gonna say I would like a one more thing, just because a one more thing always means something exciting.
And if
I'm
we have a
gonna.
one more thing, what do you think it's going to be? Do you think it'd be like Apple
Good
Home,
question.
something like that?
Ooh, I think if we get a one more thing, it could be an Apple, like, because I know there was like a device that was said to have come out and it's been like canned or postponed temporarily. So maybe it could be that. Maybe it
Okay.
could be the Vision Air. Like maybe it could be something to do
Right.
with the Vision Air.
I'm gonna do my
Um,
impression real quick.
But we do have one more thing.
That's all I got. I was gonna go find
that's a good
glasses. I
Southern
couldn't
accent.
though. Yeah. What is he? What is that from?
Um,
He
I think he's
Alabama.
from, yeah, Alabama.
He went
Yeah,
he went to college at Alabama.
I guess it's
yeah,
Or
that's
just
very
did he
decent.
go to
extremely
college
Alabama's
in
very good.
Auburn
unrecognizable.
maybe? I thought he went to college in Alabama. Alabama or Auburn, one of the two. But very
Yeah, like
southern.
because he has a he has like two teams that he supports, doesn't he? Like Duke University, I think, like, and
Oh yeah.
Auburn.
Love Duke.
Okay, I got
Um,
distracted there, trying to act like Timmy C. My bad.
so good.
Row are we on?
Row three.
Row three. So I'm gonna say what I want would be Visionaire from this row.
Right.
Row four, I would love Apple Watch glucose monitoring. I'm not diabetic. I think it would just be really cool to have.
Right.
And
I do
then on
too.
the,
I'm not diabetic, but I would love it.
I
yeah,
don't know
definitely.
how that works.
Normally you have
Like,
to insert something into you. And so like that's
yeah,
the thing.
Oh, that's
it's like one of
cool.
those
I'm
like
all I'm
Libre
all
2 things,
for
like a little circle thing.
I'm all for not inserting
Ah
things.
hold on. Let me go back. Whee!
Okay.
Alright, there you go, there you go.
Oh yeah, he's also a crazy
So
person
Um,
because he doesn't use the compact tab layout on Safari.
what do you mean
now
why would I?
it's you say that
I
I
don't need
I
to.
only started using that this year because my muscle memory was so aggressively programmed to the old way of doing things that like I've only started to do it this year. So I relate.
But I also use different profiles all the time. So I'm switching between profiles and I only have like two or three tabs open per window.
Makes sense.
Alright, go ahead, go ahead.
Last
Last row,
row.
right? Wait,
Row
so just so
five.
you know,
What?
other AI models means like Gemini integration,
Yeah.
Grok integration, like
And
that.
then let me explain what the homeless icons are. So John
Did you know his
Prosser,
middle name is Donald?
whose middle name?
Tim Cook's middle name is Donald.
No, I didn't know
I did
that.
not know that.
He was
So
born
John
in Mobile,
Prosser, Front Page Tech, we
Alabama.
were on a call and we were looking at the icons that we had from our source. And they were like, have you seen the leaks on Twitter of like
I
the icons? I made the ones on the home screen, they're like circle, but like not kind of, they're like halfway circle almost.
yeah, they're like halfway between a square and a circle, but like not
Yeah, but it's
committing
like
either way.
uncanny because it looks like a circle until you look close, and it's just weird. Anyway,
Yeah.
we started calling them homeless icons. So that's why that's on there. That's what that means.
All right, got it. That makes sense. So of these things, I would probably say, because I said Vision Air on the other, I would say Apple Intelligence on the watch would be nice. I don't think we're going to get it because we would need like much more powerful chips, but maybe like there could be some interaction. Like maybe, you know how like the original Apple Watch offloaded a lot of its processing to the iPhone and then that stuff would come back to
Right.
the watch. Maybe they could kind of almost take that sort of approach where the
Interesting.
processing request goes to the phone, comes back to the watch.
Yeah,
So I'll
and
say
then
that
while
would be
you're
I'm
at
like,
it, do
I
that with
just
HomePod.
bought. I just bought. Yes, that would be great. I just bought the Ultra 2, like literally like week and a half ago. I'm like, how are you gonna tell me at WWDC the Apple Watch 11 will now have Apple Intelligence? I'm like,
What is
really? Like,
this?
come
What
on.
are these single air quotes?
I don't know. I
You
don't
That's
think
the
know.
you are,
11.
dude.
The
Yeah.
Apple Watch 11. See,
Oh,
11.
okay. Yeah, that's great.
All right. Sorry, we went over time like a lot. I assume we were only
There's
supposed to be on
no.
here for an hour.
I guess we never supposed to put a
Oh,
time, but
we
I'm
should
gonna
have.
edit
No.
it way down. It's gonna be all clean and everything. So,
Make
think
some clips, like
if you're
vertical
watching this on
clips.
YouTube, subscribe to the podcast, which is called Tech and Then Some, which I came up with.
Oh, is this like a new YouTube channel and everything?
Yeah, it's a whole new YouTube channel. It's already
Oh,
on Apple Podcast. I'm like replacing all the old episodes. So, this has been
gotcha.
JB. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks both. Really appreciated the time. Thanks for having me.